That's so satisfying.
The first time I'm sitting in my airplane. Hey, it's Steve. Welcome back to Clear Direct. This is Avionics Part 3. We've obviously got everything installed. It's not permanent. I'll talk a lot about the reasons why it's not permanent. I've got to redo the inserts for a couple of reasons, but the folks who made these inserts, it wasn't their fault. I messed up the dimensions, more on that in a second. But these folks are awesome. They fabricate a number of different materials for you and also powder coating. And the best part is they're offering my viewers 15% off. More on that discount code in a second. There's a ton of resources to help you learn on how to do this. And then once you upload your file, you can choose from a bunch of different materials. I chose aluminum, 6061, 80,000th, and then of course, I had them powder coat. There's a wide array of choices for powder coating options. And another great thing is they ship after it's produced, free 2-day shipping in the United States and also affordable shipping to Canada as well. So just enter the discount code CLEARED15 direct using the QR code shown here, and you'll be off and running with your own inserts or any other sort of things you need help fabricating. This video is going to focus on getting to this point. There's obviously Avionics Part 1 and 2, and there's also short form and long form version of this video. We've obviously got a carbon fiber panel. I'm going to create a whole episode on just this carbon fiber panel because I'm a pretty early adopter and there's a lot of form, fit, and finish that I had to learn and go through and modifications that I had to make to get this to work. But I am really happy with how everything is looking. It pretty much matches my mock-up and it's super, super solid. There's no flex whatsoever. Let's get on into some specifics of this panel setup. Okay, let's start from left to right. The air vents are just stock from Rands. They're a little bit bigger than the aftermarket nice metal ones, which would be nice because they're metal, but there's just more cost. They're also a little bit smaller, which is good because then you would be able to see a lot more of the carbon fiber. In this case, it's fine. I still need to notch a little bit of carbon fiber out because they're clocked. I need to figure out what clock direction I want to have it installed at. Okay, the ignition, I've got a washer back there to prevent this hex nut from scratching the carbon fiber. I've got the backup ignition switch right here. This is temporarily installed. I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to try to upgrade the switch mainly because all these are LEDs because they're sold by Aerosport Products, the folks who sell this, but they only stock on-off switches. This I needed on-on. And I'll get to that probably in another episode. On into one of the reasons why this is a temporary install is I need to refabricate these panels. Unfortunately, they were nice and powder coated and printed, as you can see, but as you can also see, I didn't quite measure correctly. This says pull on and pull to set or something like that. You can't even see it. So I need to adjust that, but I've also got a washer in the back there to, again, prevent the installation from scratching the insert panel. Switches backlight. I mentioned the LED backlighting of all these switches. I didn't want to put a rheostat in there, so I just made it pretty simple. On-off switch right there. So it'll pretty much always be on unless we're flying in a dark night and I got to turn off the backlighting. Okay, the other reason we have to have this remade is the hole for the G3X Touch needs to move a little bit up into the outboard side on both. Okay, the reason why is the installation, the retaining square right there with the nut plates built in is, interacting with the subframe. Okay, again, I think it's just first generation fit and finish issue. So it's got to come up and outboard, right? Well, it still impacts right here, but I have no problem cutting a notch right there versus cutting this entire piece out. I'm gonna have the center insert remade as well. You can see there's a gap right there. So, I didn't measure perfectly the first time. And there's a gap right there. So I decreased the size of this hole. It's just in there standing by a couple of 2x4s behind there. The GFC 507 fits perfectly right now. So I was really happy with that fit and finish, the G5 as well. The throttle mixture and alternate air source knob. I don't have a plan yet for a label for the alternate air source. I gotta figure that one out. But the spacing looks a little bit odd. I just went with the standard Rands pre-drilled holes and then match drilled them through the carbon fiber, but pretty happy with these two. I would have moved this one a little bit closer in, but that's okay. On the right side, the only reason why I need to remake that one is the same as I talked about the G3X. It needs to go, in this case, up and to the right. But the ELT remote fits perfectly. The USB fits perfectly. I had to kind of file a notch because it is clocked at 12 o'clock, but I integrated that into the Adobe Illustrator files. So the next time I'm going to have them fabricated by Send Cut Send, I'll alter the graphics file and have those reprinted. So a little bit of a bummer to have to redo it, but not totally surprising. You ask, hey, why don't you just powder coat it later? There is a local powder coating company, but they are way backed up and pretty darn expensive compared to Send Cut Send. So I just opted to have the second round powder coated as well. So those will show up in a couple weeks and I'll get this permanently mounted, but it's good enough right now to start the wiring. Okay, I've got the wiring about half made harness wise, and then that affords me to start terminating other areas. So I can run the wires back to the aft portion of the cabin and then terminate those. So that is pretty valuable. You can see that I've got the firewall off mainly because of all the push-pull cables that are sticking through. So I'll probably have to remove those at some point, get the firewall back on, get those drilled. So I've made this bracket right here. You can see it's at an angle, and that's just to deconflict the mounting nuts with the tubes right here. The RAN's instructions were just updated to put foam in certain areas, neoprene foam. There's some beaded up weld material that kind of has impact points on the firewall. So that will prevent, that'll push the low areas out, if you will, and have a better contact with the firewall. I'm hopeful that it won't affect my match drilling too much. If it does, then I might have to take that foam off. But you can see how I've mounted this vertical power system, VPX. It has 2 8L clamps here, 1 here, and then I created this out of an L bracket so that it has a 4th connection point. The GAD29 AirInc went on really nicely with 4 connection points, as you can see. And then over to the GEA24, I have that connected by 3 mounting points. It is rock solid. If I might have to create another bracket for the 4th point, TBD on that right now. It's not vital that it doesn't move like a Adahars or whatnot. Adahars is mounted, primary Adahars is right here. The GSU-25C, obviously the pitot-static system, as well as the the accelerometers to figure out your pitch and stuff. And they recommend potentially not mounting it in this location if you're going to have any sort of flex in your instrument panel. But that carbon fiber is just so rock solid, and there's also aluminum here, another aluminum sub panel here. So I was fairly confident in just saving space and mounting it to the back of the GDU 460, aka the G3X Touch. So antennas, right? So well, first off, here is I haven't ordered the car backup camera, the Cal camera. Since it's a tail dragger, it'll be nice to just pull up a camera to be able to look out your nose below what you can see over the cowl. So that'll plug in there. And then it's got its own independent backup GPS source right there. But of course, the GNX 375 right here has a transponder and WAS GPS. So I ordered all the antenna cables from Shireen. I have no sponsorship, no affiliation with them, but they were a little bit expensive. I didn't want to mess with terminating those myself, so I just custom ordered. I, of course, figured out the lengths to run to the antennas and then custom ordered them. And they have a great selection of what type of connectors you need, whether it's threaded or bayonet style, right angle, etc. So if we go to the back of the airplane, I ordered some right angle terminations for this is the GPS antenna, and then the comm antenna over there. I ordered the right angled ones such that they can just turn right towards the B pillar or whatever that we call that, run it down and then forward to the LRUs. So that is the update on what I have going on here. So again, I'll have to take off those metal inserts and then reinstall everything. Certain things can stay. All those switches, they went in super smooth.
That's so satisfying.
Cutting the carbon fiber, I'll run some video of me cutting the carbon fiber, took the appropriate PPE precautions for that. That's a messy job. And then a final trim and got that really nice. So this fits super secure in there. There's no motion whatsoever. You can tell there may be, I talked about flex. There may be a little bit of motion in this right now because it is only connected to the airframe by 2 stainless steel rivets. One right here. And then same thing on the other side. But man, when you install the top skins, look at all these rivets. So that will be absolutely rock solid. Okay, here's the grounding bar. Have it mounted inverted such that I can work in the future without being in this tight space up here. I can work freely down here. So 2 8L clamps, and that is rock solid as well. I'm really excited to finish the floor because then I can put in the rudder pedals and the stick. But the reason why I can't quite yet is I need some foam. I need to source and order some closed cell foam. Here is the switch lighting harness, as well as pitch trim, which goes to the rear, obviously to the stick grips. But then this plugs into vertical power. Let's see, it's male, so it's like J2. So that will then come over to power. Well, that'll go to a bunch of places to include obviously the stick trim, which is speed controlled, right? So faster speed, it'll slow down the trim, which is kind of nice. But as far as power out, I can just daisy chain all the LED lights. So it's gonna initially go to the on-off switch. It's pretty easy, just power in, power out. These were like a bag of 5 for like 10 bucks on Amazon, and they're pretty darn sturdy. Just means I gotta cut an extra hole in my panel. And then to the backup ignition light, that is actually incandescent. I wanna swap that out and get an LED one, and then daisy chain on down. 2 connections for each, right? There's an LED on top and bottom. Backlight the logo on top and then the line on the bottom. And then over here on the other side, it'll finish up power-wise, but then the ground will continue on up to the ground bar. I've got the control stick top with the buttons in there. So I want to show you the wiring that was required. This is the Ray Allen. It's 5 buttons. It's got a push to talk up here, and then the 4 buttons on this. The way I've designed this is that all those buttons activate on a ground. Okay, so what that means is I've got the black cord coming from the airframe ground, and then that just links up to all 5 switches. Actually, it links up to this switch, and then it gets floated to that one, and then terminates there. Now, on the other side, on the bottom side of the switch, is the active, right? So the blue, I think, is gonna be my ident, and then I just switched to white because that was supplied with the trim tab, and I didn't want to use up the rest of my 24 gauge blue. And this is 26 gauge. I think I mentioned in a previous video that I don't think I have any 26 gauge. Well, that was included with the Ray Allen trim tab. So that's the ident, that's trim down, that's trim up, and then over on the other side is control wheel steering or autopilot disconnect. Okay, so those all get routed. Oh, and then of course, oh, you know what I haven't done yet is the push to talk. Glad I'm talking about this. I need to wire up one more wire on this side, and I've done this. I've done 2, both of them concurrently, which is a threat, right? If you mess up one, you're probably gonna mess up both, but it's pretty straightforward. Doesn't look straightforward, but it actually is. So I need to wire up one more going down from there for the push to talk. That'll go to my GMA 245 remote, and then that activates push to talk directly to the radios. So I just wanted to kind of document that for both my own edification for future and also for you guys. So the trick now is 2 things. One, it's going to be very important how I put these together so that none of the wires get pinched.
And then number 2 is figuring out how to splice these all together at the bottom of the stick grips. I left these plenty long so that I've got a lot of different options. So I've got either Molex, or I could just solder sleeve. That'll probably be what I do is if this is the pilots, I'll just solder sleeve it directly over to here, to one of these at the bottom, but then wire it off to one to over here, and then one to its device or LRU, right? So the ident will be the GNX 375, push to talk will be the GMA 245, the trim will go right to the vertical power, and then that in turn will go to the GSA 28, in which turn will for the pitch, and then which turn will then put it over to the Ray Allen trim servo in the horizontal stab. Whew. Okay. We don't necessarily need to label each one. There's a easy way to test for continuity on each of these. You have a multimeter, right? So volts and impedance, so resistance, ohms. So I have it set to the lowest impedance there. And just to show you, if you touch the 2 tips together, it's going to be near 0, right? There's continuity. Okay, so that's essentially what you're doing. You just want to grab the ground wire. We know the ground wire is black. Strip a little bit of it off. I don't have alligator clips. That would make this job a lot easier. But just hold it together. And then find another one, strip some wire off of that, hold it to the other connector, and then just start pushing buttons and see which one it is. Ah, bingo. First one I tried. Okay, so not that one, not that one. Boom. That looks like it's trim up. So there you go. Not only did I use Adobe Illustrator for my electric schematics, I also used it to design my panels for Send, Cut, Send. So there's the left panel, center panel, and right panel. And I got the initial set from the folks who make the carbon fiber panel. So I knew I was starting with fairly accurate dimensions, which is why I was a little bit frustrated that of the form, fit, and finish, and that I had to adjust the G3X Touch hole and create these all again. But the good news is it was easy to fix, and I got pretty good at using Adobe Illustrator, and it's super, super accurate to the, you can go to the 10,000th of an inch, but I just went to the 1,000th. And then I used the same file to then create the graphics file, which I just emailed to Driving Force Graphics to get these printed. So I've got to still work on these, get these reprinted once I receive the second set back from Send, Cut, Send. And here's the right graphic. And just so you know, this is a FAR requirement for experimental aircraft to put this within view of any passengers. Got the Send, Cut, Send box with the 3 fabricated inserts for the panel. I'm super excited. Here we go. Okay, it's 80,000th, 6061. Not sure what the temper is, but it is powder coated. Great, looks exactly as I drew up. Got the powder coated inserts ready to send off, or bring over really, to Driving Force Graphics locally here in Bend, and they're gonna do UV printing. The graphics reveal, so this is $80 for reference. Looks good. I'm not done with the harness by any stretch, but I'm done with the interior there, the portion that I can do in the inside of my house. So I've cleaned off the table, and did I meet the month suspense I put on myself? Heck no, it's been about a month and a half, but Ani has COVID and she's quarantining in her parents' basement. Get well soon. So it is time to now cut the panel. So I've got it masked off, obviously. I had to buy a 7/8 inch hole saw for this. And then this is 2 9/16. So I ordered a hole saw for that. So that's the only thing I can't do today. So I've got that. Table's done, so I'm gonna move that outside, put it on some sawhorses to have proper ventilation for this very dangerous process. I actually did get a carbon fiber splinter. Putting the masking tape on one of these holes, you can see how that can really get you. Luckily, I was able to get the splinter out. We've got Ear Pro, Eye Pro, Skin Pro, long sleeves, long pants, respirator, plugged in Dremel. Don't want to use batteries on my Milwaukee for that. A bunch of extra cutting discs, drill bits to drill center radius for the hole saw. Let's get going. I think the point where I'm at right now is figuring out where the other two holes are gonna go here for alternate air and mixture. Drill those out so I can transfer them onto the carbon panel, since I wanna be done with the cutting and trimming of the carbon panel. Cause I wanna lop off this whole area right here. It doesn't do anything, right? It's just, you know, it's probably gonna, yeah, look, it's already scratching up my truck bed liner. Trim all this off. Boom. It'll help airflow and cable flow through the back there. Not sure if you care about diameters, but this is 7/8, this is 3/4, 3/4, 3/8. And I'm imagining these are 3/8 as well. Yep, 3/8 as well. Got the USB charger and the ELT remote sized in there. Clearly that needs some screws. I can't remember if I have them yet or not. And then I've got the throttle mixture and alternate air vent holes cut in both primary panel as well as the backing plate. And I just got a 2 9/16 hole saw showed up so that I can cut the vent holes. It's time to glue these bad boys on. So scuffed them up with a little 100 grit sandpaper, cleaned them off with a little mineral spirits, and we'll JB weld or epoxy them on, I'm not sure which yet. Got everything else drilled, so this is pretty much the last step. Went with JB weld and also some Vaseline on the Cleco so that it pulls out okay. So we'll leave this overnight and get this all mocked up in the morning. It is time to tackle the spaghetti monster. I hope I didn't make a mistake in terminating too much stuff. I think I tried to do it smartly with the setup on the table to match this setup, but time will tell. So clearly these are the runs to the back of the aircraft. Definitely didn't want to terminate those too soon. I don't know where to start. I guess start on kind of one side of the aircraft. I'll probably splay it out a little bit more to gain some kind of awareness on things, on where they go. I do want to secure these guys in place a little bit more, so I'll probably clamp them down. The racks aren't even in right now. Something else I gotta do is I gotta figure out how to mount the racks. So the racks mount on these, you can't see them right now, but there are aluminum L brackets pointing forward. So that's a nice mounting spot. That's what they're there for, to mount the front of the radio mounting brackets. But then the aft portion, you could probably leave them be, but I'm not going to because I want it nice and secure for pulling G's and whatnot. But you can see, ideally this would have been flush up against, you know, the bracket here, the mount, but it just didn't work out that way with the geometry and things I had to avoid up front. Again, fit and finish. Could use a little refining. That is designed for 2 G3Xs in the Rans S21. So anyway, hopefully, you know, they'll take some feedback and improve the product for you guys in the future. But I figure a C channel coming up from here, that's, you know, pretty close to this gap distance. And then the aft portion of the radio mounts will mount nicely to the C channel. So off to Home Depot to pick up some Adirondack chairs for the backyard that the drunk driver ran over. We had a drunk driver plow through our fence and run over a whole bunch of stuff, to include my garden and Adirondack chairs, but luckily the old dead ponderosa pine protected our house from damage. So as you can tell, I've not been at work lately, which has been awesome, but I got to go back to work tomorrow. So I want to get a little bit of this wiring done. So I'm going to leave this episode here. I'm going to edit on my trip update. It is really hard to edit with this as your view. First world problems, I know. The next episode will be hopefully more of the remote LRUs and maybe even powering it up. So that'll be exciting. Thanks again for watching. Until next time, you're clear direct.